It's a few days, Roob. Tonight, we're recording this on a Thursday afternoon. There's a real live football game, NFL football game in a few hours.
Lions Chiefs. Yeah. It's finally here. Takes forever to get here, doesn't it?
It's always exciting when it arrives, though.
It is. There's nothing like football season. There really isn't. I mean, I know you could say like the Olympics and track, but NFL season.
With college football starting early now, it like throws me off because I'm like, there should be an NFL game there too.
It's late. Yeah,
it's
late. I remember seasons that began in August, but I guess they don't want to play for Labor Day weekend. I get that, but the good thing about it,
I appreciate it. I got some time down the shore before the season started.
The good thing about it is it makes the season go later, so you have something to enjoy during the gloomy, cold winter.
That's fair.
So yeah, I like a season that goes well into February.
All right, this is the Eagle Eye Podcast. He's Reuben.
But when you're in the Super Bowl, it's like the draft is like there, like all of a sudden you just played a Super Bowl. And the draft's like, 6 weeks later. It's crazy. 8 weeks later.
He's Reuben Frank.
10 weeks later.
I'm Dave Zangaro, trying to get that intro in here. Welcome, everyone. This is our final Eagle Eye before the Eagles' regular season opener on Sunday in New England. We have a bunch of stuff to talk about. We're going to lead this with everyone's favorite topic, special teams, but we're each going to pick an X factor on either side of the ball for this upcoming season. After the break, we'll get into matchups for this particular game, really try to break down where we think the Eagles might have some advantages, some disadvantages going up to New England, and then we'll give our game predictions to cap off this podcast. But Rube, let's start off with, it's funny, we talk to Michael Clay once a week during the season, and a lot of the times we don't have much to ask him. We had a lot to ask him today.
Yeah, we did. I mean, that's a big story. Look, they might have the best offense in the league. They could be, haven't had number one offense since 1949. This could be the year. I'm guessing it is. Defense, I think with all the changes, might not be number two, but I think it's still easily top 10, possibly top 5 defense with what they have up front and other guys. So that leaves one area of concern for everybody in this city, and that's special teams. And it's not just one area; it's everything other than the kicker, who's as good as anybody. So it's a big concern. And Michael Clay answered some questions, avoided some questions, but it's going to be something that we're watching throughout the season.
Certainly, and I think it starts with the punter. It's hard to ignore that. The punter's still Aaron Sipas. He's not on the 53-man roster. They worked out some other guys, and they didn't sign any of them. So he's going to be elevated for this game. He's going to go into week 1 as their punter, I would think on a relatively shorter leash than he has been before, but it's still his job. And I think you're probably pretty surprised by this.
I am. And they certainly tried to replace him. And look, it's easy to sit there on the outside and say, this guy's got a higher average. This guy did this in college. A lot of things go into it. And look, Howie Roseman knows what he's doing. If he felt he could find somebody who gave him a better chance to win a football game, he would have signed him. He would have brought him in and signed him, and Aaron Sipas wouldn't be here. So he's still here. And I talked to him for a bit today, Thursday. He knows he's on a short leash. He's not on the roster. He can't have a shorter leash than being on the practice squad. You're not guaranteed anything.
It's almost like a 3-week tryout.
It really is. But I'll tell you what, if he's
you can only be elevated 3 times.
You can only be elevated 3 times. It could be less than that too. Mm-hmm. If one of the guys they tried out had a really good workout and he has a really bad game Sunday, you could make a change on Monday. So Sipas knows it. He said, look, I've been around long enough to understand that you're not guaranteed anything. I get it. I understand why they did what they did. He says it'll bring out the best in him. We'll see about that. He thinks he made some tweaks technically that will give him more consistency. He spoke about slowing the operation down. He says he tends to rush things. And he says when he does that, he doesn't see the ball as well as he should. And he said it's not anything. He said it's milliseconds. He said it's just slow it down a millisecond, and it could make a big difference. You can't slow it down too much, then you start getting punts blocked. Yeah. So it's a fine line, as a guy in Indy once said, or more than once. He's got a strong leg.
More than Indy.
Yeah. He's got a strong leg. Like, there's no denying because once in a while he'll hit like this monster punt. It's just consistency. And I think that's probably the problem with a lot of punters. But you'd rather have a guy that hits it 45 every time than a guy that hits 150, then 138. And that's what they have right now. And certainly his last punt was maybe the worst special teams play in Eagles postseason history. I don't know. I'd have to think about that, but it could well be. It was a disaster. It was a catastrophe. So he's trying to move on from that. It's harder than it seems to find a good punter. College punting and NFL punting are completely different things. And I still would not be surprised if he's not here for the long term. It's a lot of pressure.
What do you mean long term?
Bye week.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think he'll be here all year, but they're going to give him every opportunity.
The scary thing is, I don't know if there's anything he can do to really get rid of all the fears about him.
Well, I mean, if he can punt consistently,
for how long would it need to be?
Over a month.
Okay.
But the thing is, like, before he got hurt last year, he was hitting the ball pretty well for like his net for like I think it was like the 6 weeks leading up to that was in the low 40s. It was pretty good. So maybe he wasn't healthy when he came back. Maybe he shouldn't have kicked in the Super Bowl. Maybe Brett Kern should have. We've had that discussion several times. But I don't know what it would take. But certainly a string of consistent games would help. But at some point, I mean, he's just got to be consistent. If he's not, he'll be replaced.
Such a weird thing thinking about like how things could have been different. Like if Brett Kern was just serviceable, they probably don't rush Siposs back. Then they come into this year feeling pretty good about like the whole dynamic changes. And obviously you can't undo history, but it's just funny how it kind of just one little thing changes everything else.
Everything. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. And, how he responds to that's a lot of pressure. You're kicking for your job every Sunday or Thursday in week 2. I don't know if he's got it in him. We'll see.
Yeah, it is important to point out he's the holder of that operation, and that is important. But I was talking to an Eagles staffer about this, that, yeah, like that's an important part of the job, but Jake Elliott was pretty darn good with Ty Zedner holding too. And that is a big difference. And it's something that I don't really understand. They're so technical, but it is apparently a really big difference, like who's holding and who's not. And I know the team was impressed by how well Jake kicked. Now, he did miss one in the preseason with Zedner holding, but it was just he missed it. It wasn't a bad hold or anything. So I know they were impressed by how he kicked with a different holder. So I think that matters, but maybe not to the extent we think it matters.
Yeah, maybe like a tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing you don't want to do is keep changing. I think that's the one thing we've seen.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Can you not do that? Because what if you're playing this roster game and you have Siposs for 3 games, then you bring in a different punter and you have him on the practice squad for 3 weeks?
6 different punters this year?
Yeah, just keep rotating these guys through.
Yeah, I don't think that's ideal.
Okay.
It probably is the first time in Eagles history that they've gone into a season without a punter on the roster. Has to be. Because they didn't play roster games like this until
the
roster was
probably since punter became a full-time position.
It was really interesting how early in Eagles history the quarterback was in NFL history. The quarterback was always the punter.
Yeah, it's a fun week to talk about this because Belichick would give us a good half hour on it. Did you hear his dissertation about the long snapper?
I heard about it. Yeah.
If you're having trouble going to sleep tonight, pop that bad boy on.
Yeah. There was a point. Jim McMahon led the NCAA in punting when he was at BYU, and Randall's got like one of the greatest punters ever, and they were teammates here. So the Eagles had 2 of the best college punters in history on the team at the same time, and neither one was a punter.
Yeah, he used to just be like another athlete on the field.
Bill Bradley was a safety. He was Eagles punter. Mm-hmm. I think he punted more than anybody in Eagles history because he was here. He was a Pro Bowl safety for a long time. And anyway, I don't know how this always happens, but
we're on track. We're talking special teams.
Yeah, but we're talking about Bill Bradley.
That's what the people want. They're ready for a Super Bowl season. They're getting fired up. And here we are talking about special teams.
Talking about quarterbacks punting.
Special teams.
I remember Randall kicking 60-yard field goals back behind the field house at Westchester with no rush, but still His leg was nuts. He used to say, when I can't play quarterback anymore, I'm just going to come back as a punter. He never did.
That would have been pretty cool.
I hoped he did. I hoped he would have. Tom Tupa deal. Anyway, but the flip side of special teams, it's not just the punter. There's a lot more to it.
It's not. Let me tell you the top. I'll go top 10 special teams snap guys from last year. Number 1, Zach McPherson.
Gone.
Number 2, Nakobe Dean.
Probably gone 99%. Might
at least he'll see minimal compared to last year. Kayvon Wallace.
Gone.
Patrick Johnson.
Here.
Sean Bradley.
Gone.
Injured.
Gone from the roster.
Gone from the roster. Kyron Johnson.
Gone.
Zach Pascal.
Gone.
And then Josh Jobe, Jack Stoll, and Jake Elliott also here. But then Marcus Epps right under that. Josiah Scott, Andre Sachere.
All gone.
Yeah, I mean, this is a major flip from last year. And I don't think it's like completely different from what a lot of teams go through because your special teamers are bottom of the roster guys, but they're going to need a lot of new players in roles, in important roles this year. Yeah,
and a lot of training camp is trying to find combinations with guys that you don't know if they'll be here. And we saw some of those guys that aren't with the team anymore play big roles in special teams in the preseason. So Christian Ellis, Patrick Johnson, Sidney Brown, like guy like Keely Ringo, I don't think he'll be up. If he's not dressed, it's not going to help. Maybe
it's a tricky thing because if he's up, he's got to play special teams. But how many corners are you going to have up on game day? And and Job is going to have a big role. You would think Mario Goodrich is going to be up as the backup nickel. He's going to have a big role.
Yeah.
It might come down to Ricks or Ringo, or maybe neither of them. But if one of them's up, they're going to have to be a core special teamer.
Now, one interesting name is Nolan Smith, who generally, if a first-round pick is playing special teams, people think it's a busted pick. Well, we can't do. What are we going to do with him? But he's such an athlete, and he really loves playing special teams. All those Georgia guys.
It's a Kirby Smart thing. It makes them do it, and they take pride in it.
And they really do. I remember talking to Nakobe early last year, and I was like, man, how tough is it? You're not playing defense. He's like, man, I love special teams. And they have it pounded into their head at an early age in Athens, and they believe it. And look, that's one of the reasons Georgia's so good. I mean, they're good in every phase. And having Nolan Smith on special teams, I mean, he could be a beast out there.
Yeah, and he loves it.
Loves it.
And sometimes you forget that, like, starting players would sometimes be the best special teamers. Yeah. And so you just forget that sometimes. I remember, who was it? It was like Andre Johnson played special teams like his first season for a little bit of time. And he'd be the best gunner in the league, but we're not going to waste him out there. And I think, like, A.J. Brown would be, like, a fantastic gunner, but you're obviously not going to do that.
Yeah. And, we've seen teams in a playoff push, put a couple starters on special teams, but you got to really pick and choose where and when situations, because guys only have so many snaps.
There aren't Malcolm Jenkins out there everywhere.
No, he was one of a kind.
Really, I mean, they had Malcolm and Rodney during those years, both playing heavy snaps on defense and special teams. That's rare.
What if Rodney's still playing special teams out in Cleveland at 35 or whatever it is?
I doubt it.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Wouldn't surprise me too much.
We were talking to him during joint practices. The dude's in shape.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like.
I was about to be like, hey, Rodney, why don't you go put a shirt on, bud? Yeah, but they're going to miss these guys. I mean, Zach McPherson ended up being a really important piece. He kind of took a leadership role. It was really funny. I was talking to Patrick Johnson and Josh Jobe about, like, becoming leaders of the special teams group. And Patrick Johnson, who's been here for a little while now, but it's weird to think about him being a veteran, but he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to have to take a lot more of that responsibility. Sean Bradley had kind of been their special teams leader. He was a captain at one point, I believe. Was once, like, pretty
Pro
close.
Alternate.
Pro Bowl alternate. Yeah. So not having him is a big deal as well.
Yeah, we'll see. And I mean, I've been pretty blunt about I haven't seen a reason to have a ton of faith in Michael Clay. This is a big challenge for him. It's his third year here. A lot of people didn't think he was going to survive the offseason, especially after.
Imagine being Michael Clay, though. You're already thinking, man, my special teams unit didn't have a great year last year. Here you go, Michael. You don't have a punter on the roster or a punt returner. Like 5 of your top 10 specialists from last year are gone. Good luck.
Yeah. Go go stop the Patriots. Let me give you an interesting name.
Who have historically great special teams because Bill Belichick is a special teams nut.
He is former special teams coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think.
I believe so.
Devin Allen showed he can make a difference
as a gunner.
Yeah. I wonder if we'll see him as a call-up at some point.
Yeah, it's tough because they can't do it now because they got to call up their punter and maybe their punt returner. So I don't know if just being a gunner
is enough.
Like last year they called up Christian Ellis, but he was like a core, like on every unit.
Yeah.
Whereas it's an important job on the units, but it's not the only job.
That's fair. Let me give you another name, Ben Van Sumeren.
See, now that's more likely. Or even like a Nicholas Morrow.
Yeah.
Who has experience in the NFL. I know he was a starter last year, but he's, I think he's shaky as a position player, but something like that would make sense. They have some options. The problem is like you just can't bring up everyone.
No, you got a couple game day elevations, and unless you want to go for it on every fourth down, one of them's got to be the punter.
Yeah, Morrow has played quite a bit in Oakland. His highest percentage was 64%.
That's high
in 2018. That is high. Yeah, that's a lot. To put that in perspective, the Eagles had just 5 guys over 64% last year. So they have some options, but man, they're missing them. And it's kind of like, when Marcus Epps last year went from special teamer to starter, like they're also going to lose Reed Blankenship, who played a decent role on teams. Now he wasn't active for long enough, like before he started playing defense to really see the drop, but he ended up being a pretty big special teamer.
Yeah. Big challenge.
It is.
A lot of changes.
If there's one area where you're a little nervous about, if you're an Eagles fan, I think this is it. Which, look, to be clear, is if you had to pick one of the 3 to be nervous about, this is the one you'd pick.
Yeah, but I mean, special teams, I mean, those are huge yards. I mean, because one special teams screw up, 20 yards, easy. You think about 20 yards on offense or defense and how big that is. That's 1/5 of the field. So they've got to be better. And I thought they got a little better as last year went on. There was, I think Christian Ellis helped.
He helped.
But the way the season ended, I mean, they got to get past that. Michael Clay has to get past that.
At least Covey had a good return.
In the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
He had 27-yarder. Yeah.
It's not all negative here, Rube.
No, I like Covey. I think Covey's fine.
I do too, actually. All right. Want to move on?
Yeah.
We came up with a couple X factors on each side of the football. So guys who aren't necessarily star players, like we're not going to pick A.J. Brown, for instance.
Oh, that's who I have.
As an X factor. Someone who's a little under the radar. So let's start with offense, then go to defense. Who's your guy on offense?
My guy on offense is OZ, Olamide Zaccheaus. He's a guy who had almost 600 receiving yards in Atlanta last year. I don't know if he'll approach that number here just because there's so many other weapons, and I don't know how big a role he'll have. But I like what I saw from him. It took him a couple weeks to really kind of find his way in training camp, I thought. He was pretty there was a point where I didn't think he was going to make the team. Like the first week of the season of the preseason. I shouldn't phrase it that way, but I wondered if he might not. But he got it together, and I thought he was really good after that. And he's got great hands. He's faster than you kind of think. And I could see him making an impact. Not a huge one, but making an impact.
How do you think he'll see the field? Do you think it'll be if they go 4 wide, or do you think there will be situations where they'll have him on the field instead of Quez in certain packages?
I think they will.
Okay.
I think they will have him on the field in certain packages. I think Quez has and a lot's going to have to do with how Quez, another one who's got to kind of overcome what happened in Glendale, and just kind of what they get from him. I just don't know.
And we should make it clear that like Quez is definitely ahead of him.
Sure.
I think that if you haven't been paying attention this summer, and you might not know that, but it's definitely Quez's job as a number 3.
Yeah, but he was, he missed a lot of time, and it gave OZ a lot of opportunities with the ones, and I thought he handled it well. I think there would be situations where you'd rather have OZ out there than Quez.
Why is OZ the abbreviation for ounces?
I guess the same reason LBs is for pounds. Probably comes from Latin.
Probably Latin.
Everything comes from. If you don't know either, it's either from the Bible, from Shakespeare, or from Latin.
Latin.
Always, yeah.
I'll go Latin.
Yeah, probably Latin. I took Latin in 10th grade.
Why?
I thought it'd be interesting because I just
Was
thought
it?
It was actually. Yeah, we learned a lot about like the history and the geography of Latinia. No, it was interesting. I had a good professor, teacher, I guess, in high school, teachers. It was interesting because of the connection between Latin and the English language. So
Yeah, and so much of like
the roots,
like science vernacular,
yeah,
comes from Latin.
Yeah, ounces and pounds comes from Latin,
as we've established here. All right, my guy on offense, and I don't know if he's super under the radar in Philly, but I think outside of this city, where people are like looking at the roster and this team, I don't think people are expecting much from Kenny Gainwell.
I think Jalen hurt somebody there. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think because Penny and Swift have had, they have more of a resume than Kenny Gainwell.
And
so,
you know what's funny? I did one fantasy football league each year, and I don't really pay a ton of attention to it, honestly, but I did the draft last night, and I was shocked how much earlier DeAndre Swift went than Kenny Gainwell. Like, Gainwell might be one of the last picks in the entire draft, and I stayed away from both of them because I think it really is going to be an up and down week to week thing that'll make you pull your hair out. But Gainwell is going to have a role.
Yeah,
he's at the very least he's going to be out there in 2 minute and 4 minute, and those are important plays. Those are opportunities for him to catch the ball, pick up some yards. He's really smart, and they like him in that spot. So no matter what happens, like even if Swift is great, even if Penny's great, Gainwell's still going to play.
Yeah, no question about it. I'm with you, and I think they really like him, his versatility, and he's out of all those guys, he's the guy that is going to be here. I mean, I don't know what will happen after next year, but he's the only guy that's
under contract
beyond this year, and I think that matters. I think that matters when you're trying to build something. I think when Kenny Gainwell gets the hot hand, they'll stick with him. I mean, that might be true for all of them, but I think the coaches really like him. And
I think there's probably
more of a familiarity with him too.
This is me reading into it a little bit, maybe deeper than I should. I think the coaches might trust Kenny Gainwell more than the front office that brought in Swift and Penny, because the coaches have proven that they trust him. Whereas the front office, I know they're linked, I know they talk, I know there's a cohesion, but they went out and they brought in 2 other players.
Yeah, they got him so cheap. They got them both so cheap, and Howie. I mean, Howie's gonna when he sees a bargain, he's gonna pounce, and he did in both cases. But yeah, I kind of like that one because I'm a Gainwell fan. I just think he's a guy that I like the way he handled last year. I mean, he didn't really play during the year, and then just kind of started playing and responded well. Wonder how awkward it was between Miles and Kenny last year. Playoffs, because we were all starting to see
it was
changing of the guard.
There was a split, like it was going toward one direction. I don't know. I think sometimes.
What's your favorite One Direction song?
I don't know if I can name one, honestly.
Who does that? Quit playing games with my heart. Is that them?
Alex gave us some update on.
Oh, that's
the word
Backstreet
ounce.
Boys.
The word ounce ultimately comes from the Latin word uncia, which means 1/12. This is also where we get the word inch. In Italian, this became onzo, which is where we get both the word ounce and its abbreviation OZ. So Latin to Italian. To America.
To Atlanta to Philly.
Yeah.
Alex,
I get it.
What about pounds? Is that
no,
Latin?
I don't. Yeah, well, he said pound here too. Oh, it's inch. I don't know.
What do you say pound? Inch is not a pound.
Inch, yeah.
Anyway. That is interesting.
Yeah. Defense. X factor.
I'm going Christian Ellis. And we talked about him and the impact he made on special teams. We saw him have a good summer playing linebacker. And I don't know that Zach Cunningham is going to be a long-term answer. He's a guy who was on the street for 2 weeks of training camp. He was okay. He was okay in the preseason, but I just have a feeling at some point Christian Ellis might be a starting linebacker, or at least have a big role on defense. which would mean he'd be a starter pretty much.
Yeah, they're not really going to play 3 linebackers. So, like in that circumstance, I guess would be bad news for Zach Cunningham.
Yeah.
It means he struggled to the point where they take him off the field.
Yeah, and maybe they just feel Christian's not quite ready. Maybe you want to get Nakobe Dean some more experience so you don't have 2 just guys who haven't played NFL linebacker out there together.
Think it'll be an advantage for Cunningham in week 1 against Bill O'Brien, the offense that he saw in practice for
I don't know.
3 years, 4 years?
I don't know. I don't know if that matters more than just watching film. I don't know.
Okay.
But I do know they're putting a lot on Nakobe's plate with the green dot and being out there every snap. And so I think Zach Cunningham has a lot of experience, and if he starts the season next to him, a little comfort zone. But I could definitely see that changing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked by that.
Yeah.
I think there's something there with Christian Ellis.
Yeah.
I hope Zach Cunningham can play special teams if that happens.
He either will or he won't be on the roster. Yeah. It'll be an Anthony Harris type deal.
My X factor on defense is Milton Williams. We saw when he was healthy in the second half of last year, he's disruptive. And there are so many other guys in that defensive line. I mean, gosh, how many first-round picks are there on that defensive line?
Crazy, right?
And he's the third-round pick who isn't the flashiest guy.
He's 5.
Yeah.
Right?
BG, Fletcher, Nolan,
6.
Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter.
Derek Barnett.
6.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. Milton is a 3, but he last year, the second half, he looked really good. And I think he's going to give them some really good snaps. I like not just his aggression getting to the quarterback. He had 4 sacks last year, which was a nice little jump up. He had 2 as a rookie, but also his plays in pursuit go unnoticed. But the motor is nonstop with that guy. He chases down plays that he has no business being in the area code for, and he gets there.
Hassan Reddick, 7.
7, yeah.
That's crazy. They have 12 first-round picks on the team, and 7 are up front. And the others are Lane, Mariota, Penny, Edmonds, Devontae. That's it. Yeah, 5 others.
Wow.
That's crazy. More than half the first-round picks on the roster are on D-line or overhang players. Anyway, what were you talking about?
How'd you get lost when you were the only one talking right there?
I was looking that up, and I just
we're talking about Milton.
Yeah, I'm a big Milton fan.
I am too. I think he gives them something, and we'll see how many snaps he loses to Jalen Carter. But at least early in the year, I think you're going to trust Milton more.
Yeah, he's very steady.
Mm-hmm.
Very steady. Doesn't make mistakes. Always in the right place.
Who do you think gets more third down snaps between Fletcher, Milton, and Jalen?
Could be Milton, at least early in the season.
Yeah, I think eventually you're going to want Jalen Carter out there on third downs.
Yeah,
and Fletcher's not going to be happy if he's not out there on third downs.
Yeah, it's interesting though. I mean, they all have that ability.
Even Jordan Davis has the ability. I think he'll probably lose that battle a lot of times, but we've seen him line up in nickel fronts all summer.
Yeah.
All right, want to take a break and then we'll get the matchups?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Pounds derives from the name of an ancient Roman unit of measurement, libra pondo. Our word pound comes from pondo, and its seemingly unrelated abbreviation LB comes from the libra part of the phrase.
I feel like Libra Pondo would be a really good band name.
Libra Pondo? I like that.
Yeah.
That would be a good
That's
band.
my new band.
I like that.
We just broke up.
All right. Let's move on.
Let's do it.
Matchups for this game. Eagles last year 14-3, all the way to the Super Bowl. Patriots 8-9. They missed the playoffs, but they showed some good signs, I think. And this year they have a legitimate offensive coordinator, which ought to help. Bill O'Brien back in New England. It's been a long time since he's been in New England. You just think of him as being a Patriots guy. He hadn't been there since 2011.
Yeah, it's been a while, but same head coach.
Yeah, same head coach. And look, as much as Bill O'Brien fizzled out as an NFL head coach, he was a really good coordinator, and he knows offense. He did a lot of good things at Penn State when he was there. He did a lot of good things at Alabama the last couple of years. So he's going to help them.
He will. He will. I mean, to me, the big question is Mac Jones. We'll get to that.
Yeah, I think some of what Bill is going to do is going to help Mac. Ultimately, I don't know if he's talented enough to be like a legit franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
But they're going to set him up a little bit better this year. Last year was kind of unfair to him.
500 teams since Brady left, right? 25 and 25. Yeah.
Middle of the field. It's not necessarily a strength for the Patriots, but it could be a weakness for the Eagles. And I think it's an area where teams are going to target them quite a bit this season with the 2 new linebackers, 2 new safeties. And we've talked about this a little bit. Avonte Maddox coming back from that toe surgery. To me, he looked a little stiff all summer, and they might not know that, but just the fact that you have Slay and Bradbury outside, it's kind of natural to throw the ball in the middle of the field.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. Maddox I don't think he had a bad camp, but yeah, he just didn't seem like himself that we're used to seeing. And look, that was a serious injury and surgery, and obviously it was still an issue as camp started. So, we saw Bradbury at times in the slot, and be interesting to see how that plays out. If we see that in games, or if that was just something they were kind of working on. But look, Avonte Maddox at less than 100% is a concern. So we'll see.
Yeah. So this isn't like a great group of receivers,
right?
With the Patriots, Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne,
and Parker's been on their injury list. I'm sure he'll play, but
yeah, they have a few guys who are banged up, including Juju Smith-Schuster. He's been dealing with a knee injury. It sounds like he's going to play too. So I'd watch him in the slot, and I know a lot's going to be made of Juju and the Super Bowl and all that. I don't think that really matters once the whistle gets blown.
Yeah, Bradbury was asked about that. He was like, yeah, I was ready for the question. And he's like, look, it's not me versus him. It's our defense versus their offense. And that's how I'm looking at it. Now you have to.
And he's been a decent player.
Yeah.
He's never going to be what he was. So I think it was like 2018 when he had 1,400 yards, but he's been serviceable. He's a decent player, and they just need someone there offensively to step up and shoulder some of the load as a receiver, and maybe it'll be him.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he did catch 78 balls for the Chiefs last year.
Yeah,
not a ton of yards.
Quiet, like 900-yard season.
Yeah.
A couple of.
He's only 26.
I know.
Crazy.
The injuries have taken their toll on him. A high draft pick.
He was a 2, right? I think he was a 2.
I thought he was a second. 62nd overall.
USC.
Yeah, he was getting first round buzz in 17. Ended up going a second round. Had a decent career.
Yeah.
Not great. And then the tight ends.
Better than some USC receivers. Anyway.
No, he had 1 year better than. That's arguable.
I mean, he's had 4 years over 900 yards.
Okay. Maybe a little better.
Or over 800 yards. 3 years over 9. Anyway, let's move on.
Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. The Patriots love their tight ends. They've cycled through a few of them in the last several years, but I think they're still going to be a big part of that offense.
Yeah.
You concerned about the Eagles linebackers and safeties in coverage?
You have to be.
I think you do.
Until they show they can handle it. Yeah.
That front of the Patriots banged up all summer. A few different injuries. They won't even have their right tackle, Riley Reef. They put him on IR. He'll be back at some point this season, but Eagles won't have to worry about him. They'll have Calvin Anderson out there at right tackle going against Hassan Reddick. And even with that thumb injury, that's the spot where Reddick should be able to feast a little bit.
Yeah, I would think so. And I'm curious to see how he'll look with that cast or whatever he's going to have on there. Well, we don't really know specifically what it'll be, but he seemed to be like, I'll be fine, but I don't know what it'll be like playing with that. So there's a little concern there, but not a ton. I think he's going to have a big year, and I think he'll be fine. And that's a matchup that really favors him.
It favors him, but hands are important.
Yeah.
For a defensive tackle or for defensive lineman. So I think he might be a little slower at the start. But the nice news is you got Josh Sweat on the other side going against Trent Brown, and you're probably not going to win with power against Trent Brown, but you can get around him.
And that's Sweat's game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a huge dude, but.
And then if you get Nolan Smith in there,
yeah,
I think I like that matchup for the Eagles against Trent Brown. And then inside, I mean, they've had some injuries there too. This has been a banged up offensive line.
Yeah. I think you could see the Eagles' defensive front really assert itself.
Yeah. But they got to get in passing downs. That's the key all the time for this defense. It's going to be the key in week 1. Patriots should have a decent run game. I mean, their offensive line is banged up. That hurts them. But I think the addition of all the RPO game from Bill O'Brien will help this, and they have a couple of good backs.
Well, Ramondre Stevenson's a guy who averaged 5 yards a pop last year, had over 1,000 yards, I believe. He's had a couple good years. He was another typical Patriots late round running back. That's all they've had during the whole Belichick era. Is just they just keep drafting guys in the 4th, 5th, 6th round and get a couple years out of him and then move on. But he's a good player. He's a good player. He's a good back. He's got good size. He's big. He's tough. I'm really curious to see this matchup because the Eagles' run defense was not good last year, except against Jonathan Taylor. Shut him down. But obviously, much of the year they were really bad, 4.6 yards a pop. Postseason, they weren't great. So, to me, out of all these matchups, this is a really interesting one because if they can slow down the Patriots' running game, I think they could be a blowout.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Patriots' defense is still decent, so I think it's maybe a tough blowout.
I don't think
game.
the Patriots are going to be able to do a lot of damage through the air.
I agree with that.
So I think they're going to have to be able to run the ball to be able to outscore the Eagles, and I just don't know if they can do that.
How much do you think Zeke has left? Zeke Elliott now in New England?
Not a lot.
Yeah, the Cowboys really just used him up, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's what every team does, and it makes sense. I mean, it's just the reality of the league. Averaged 3.8 last year. Hasn't averaged over 4.2 since 19. That was his last big year. Did get in the end zone, 12 touchdowns last year. But I don't think of him as a threat. He's old for running back. He just turned 28.
It's amazing the drop off some of these guys have.
It's incredible.
Yeah. All right, let's flip to the other side of the ball. Eagles receivers against Christian Gonzalez. If you're Brian Johnson, I think the first thing you do is you go down the roster in New England, go down the depth chart, and you find the rookie and you circle him. And look, I like Christian Gonzalez, 17th overall pick out of Oregon. I like him coming out. He's one of my favorite players, probably my favorite corner in this draft, but that's tough duty.
Yeah, he just turned 21. That's a lot to ask to start your career against these guys. So we'll see. He's a nice prospect. He's got good size and everything, but he's going up against some of the best in the league. So that's a tough ask.
It is, and they play so much man coverage up there that it makes it a little tougher. They played a little bit less last year, which like the entire league has been playing less and less. It's the way things have gone, but one-on-one against A.J. Brown. And we saw it like Jalen Hurts this summer, all those timing routes, all the back shoulder stuff, that can kill you if you're a young corner because you can have great coverage and it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's funny how now like Devontae is like the more experienced. He's in year 3 now, and AJ's in second year here. And I don't know if their numbers are going to be up to what they were last year, but they're definitely both better. You just see that, and their connection with Jalen is better. So this could be a big mismatch. Yeah,
all the things we talked about in training camp, my biggest takeaway was, whoa, this passing offense could be incredible.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we did our predictions last on Tuesday, and I got them over 30 points a game just because I don't know how people are going to stop them.
Jordan Mailata has a tough matchup in this game. Matt Judon, he's really good. He doesn't get talked about enough. 4-time Pro Bowler, last 4 years. He had, 15 and a half sacks last year. He's a monster out there. And that's the one area where if they generate pressure on that side, and then all of a sudden you have to help out a little bit with a chip or a tight end, then it kind of changes your offensive game plan.
Yeah, he's a really good player, and he was another really late round pick fifth or sixth round pick. So I'm really curious what kind of year Mulata is going to have. And it's funny, some I shouldn't say, I'll be nice here. Some media member, one of our colleagues from another news gathering organization, went up to him giggling and laughing and said, Hey, Jordan, what kind of year are you going to have this year? What kind of question is that? He says, I hope I'm going to have a good one, mate, but I don't know. We'll see. And I don't know if he was a huge disappointment last year. He was dealing with the shoulder, but Matt Juden is really good. And he's gotten better every year, like kind of like Sweat, those late round picks that, I think Juden, he had 4 sacks his first year. They had 8. 12 and a half was a career high in 21, and then 15 and a half last year. I think he got all pro votes. I believe he, let's see where he was. But anyway, that's a tough ask. So he's healthy now. Mulata is, you'd like to see him take the next step and be a Pro Bowl player, which he's never been. Yeah,
it's kind of like, look, if this is all he ever is, great. You got a above average starting left tackle out of a 7th round pick. You paid him, that's fine. But when they paid him, we still thought there was more room for growth. And I'm curious to see
I think there is, if he's healthy, but yeah, he's got to do it. And this is a big challenge for him. Juden's really, really good. Quick.
Yeah, good player. And look, there's some other players on that line that are pretty good, but he's the star of it all. Jalen Hurts and his legs. I think he has an opportunity here to run all over New England. We saw in 2 games last year, Lamar Jackson in week 3, Justin Fields in week 7 against the Patriots. 107 yards for Lamar, 82 for Justin Fields. They'll give up some yards, especially when they're in man, because you don't have eyes on the quarterback.
Right. 82 is actually probably one of Justin Fields' lower totals last year, right? They have like 1,100 yards.
Yeah, he had a big running year.
Yeah. And, I think there will be a time when Jalen Hurts doesn't run as much, but I don't think it's going to be this year. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. He looks like he's just ready to, I was watching Individual today, and they were doing RPO stuff. And every time Jalen ran, he would run down they were on the goal line. He'd run to the 30-yard line, like sprint to the 30-yard line. And it was like 112 degrees out. And he's just and the backs will they'll run maybe to the 15 and slow down, jog to the 20, come back. He was all out sprint to the 30 every time. He was almost in the receiver drills, which were at the 40. I think he's just ready to just go nuts. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think this is and look, we've talked about, will they use him as a runner less? In certain games, they're not going to. In certain games, they're going to unleash him because that's going to give them the best shot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the way this offense is going to be.
It's what makes him so special. And I think he's going to get better as a passer again this year. I think there's still more room for growth there. And we saw that growth, at least in practice. And I think that's going to help the offense become more dynamic, but that element of his game is still vital.
Yeah, and it's going to make the running backs better. It just makes them so hard to defend. And as long as he's able to do it, as long as he's healthy, it's going to keep happening.
All right. Do you have a prediction for this game?
Well, you might have my score closer than I do. I think I picked the Eagles by a touchdown, right? I don't have it.
Yes, you picked them 27-20.
Yeah, because, and weird things happen opening day. There's nobody knows.
The spread is right now
it's 4, right?
3.5.
So I'm covering. I think a couple of things. I think it's tough for teams that lost the Super Bowl don't historically play well on opening day the next year. I don't know if that means anything, but they're 4-16 in the last 20 road games and 10-15 in the last 25 overall. So I just think early in the season, especially week 1, teams don't know who they are yet. Bad teams don't know they're bad yet. So every team is trying.
I think the Cardinals are going to have a pretty good
Cardinals know they're
guess
bad.
At that.
But in general, I think a lot of good teams don't know they're good yet. And they start discovering things about themselves. But you see a lot of weird stuff on opening day. There's unscouted looks. There's stuff that nobody has shown, stuff they've been working on all summer that people haven't seen. So you get a lot of surprises. You do get upsets. And look, the Eagles could go up there and win this thing 30-10. I wouldn't be surprised, but I think it's going to be a little closer. So I'm going 27-20 Eagles.
I was close to that score. I had 27-17.
Okay.
I think the Eagles are just the better team. And I understand the fear of the unknown. Like, and Belichick, with a lot of time, he's a great coach, obviously. And that defense
With a lot of Brady, he's a great coach.
Well, no, I mean, the defense has
He's
been
a good
really
defensive
good.
coach, sure.
He certainly knows what he's doing on defense. He's not going to make it easy on you. But I also have a theory that, like, the thing that Belichick does so well is devising game plans for each week individually, so you never know what's coming. You almost kind of lose the effect of the unknown in week one because he has that effect. You know what I mean? It's like not any different playing him in week one than week three.
Because it's always week one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. One interesting thing I noticed since 2006, I believe, the two teams with the best opening day records in the NFL are the Eagles and Patriots.
Oh.
Eagles are like 12-5. Patriots are 13-4. Again, it doesn't mean anything. But it's interesting.
Two of the better teams in that stretch. Yeah,
right. So
I'd be surprised if it was like, the Lions have been great on openers. Well,
no, it's interesting though to me. Two best. So it's gonna be a fun game. Can't wait. We've been waiting for this day for so long.
I'm excited. Excited to get on the road for week one. Be in Providence, Rhode Island. I decided to go to Providence and not. You're a Providence. You were always a Providence over Boston.
I'll do the Amtrak to Providence.
I'm flying.
Yeah, I was a big Amtrak guy because there's a 6 a.m. flight out of, and the train station is right across from the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
There's like the State House.
Yeah.
So you just walk over to the train station, get on the 6 o'clock, and just start writing. Have all your stories done by the time you get to New Haven or Old Haven, definitely.
Yeah, excited for that. Can I tell you Brian Johnson story from today?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
It was really funny. So you use your phone as a recorder.
I do.
So you put it up there on the table for his press conference. And then after the press conference, you went to get it back and it wasn't up there. And you chased down Brian and said, "Hey, wait, do you have my phone?" And he had picked it up.
Yeah. And so I was going to stop my recorder and then just immediately start it again for Michael Clay, who was just starting. Mm-hmm. And I see him walking up and I see he's got like a card. It was probably his notes for the presser. And he's got a phone that looked like my case because you can tell it's got like these, droid. And he's just leaving with it. And it's like, if I'm wrong, I'm going to sound really stupid. Like if I accuse the Eagles offensive coordinator of taking my phone and he didn't, how dumb would I look?
Yeah. And there was a very good chance it was like in your pocket.
Very good chance. So I tried to like triple check. I looked up on the table a couple times. I looked by my seat. There's that little like film table right next to where I sit. It wasn't there. I was like, if I don't stop him, I might never see my phone.
Good recovery speed out of you.
Yeah.
And I also came up with a theory that you haven't been losing things for the past 40 years. It's just been Brian Johnson.
He's taking all my stuff.
Yeah, even as a kid, he was like sneaking in places and hiding your stuff.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Blame him. Blame Brian Johnson.
But I've been losing stuff since before he was a coach or probably born.
Probably.
Yeah.
We good here?
Yeah.
All right. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, click the like button, subscribe there as well. We appreciate all the support. We'll be back with you for our first post-game pod of the regular season on Sunday night. That's it for Roob. I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye. We'll talk to you soon.